This morning. I'll start with walking through the last few days, as painful as they've been from a disappointing loss on Saturday and finding out our fate later on that day. Claude and I met for an extended period of time on Sunday morning to start the assessment process internally for our own personal situations and start to unearth and uncover, and dissect a little bit what we feel went wrong and where we were headed next. And Monday was exit physicals for all the players. Got an assessment from where those players were at and what surgeries may be for them. Spent all day Tuesday in exit meetings with individual players, Claude and I both, and Claude and I met again on Wednesday to go back over those, and then here we are this morning in moving forward and understanding the direction that this organization has to go to get better and get us back to where we want to be.
Great. With that, if you could just indicate that you'd like to ask a question, we'll get a microphone to the front DJ.
This is for Don. Will Claude be head coach next season?
Absolutely. I emphatically believe that Claude's a coach that can take us through what I'll describe has been a bumpy transition period this year, and we've got work to do. I have work to do. There's no question that we have areas that we want to address, and collectively we've already started to assess that. We did throughout the course of the year, and we've tried to address some of those things, and we're going to continue to address them.
Are all of his assistants staying on?
We've actually decided to make a change. Doug Huda will not be back. All the coaches, with the exception of Baba Senza, who has a contract in place, do not have contracts. Claude and I, and organizationally, we are looking at a bunch of different things that we're going to continue to assess over the next few days, rather than just sort of be cut and dried. We want to make sure we're making what's best decisions for us and the necessary decisions going forward, and that's top to bottom.
Just wondering, what made this decision a lot quicker to make versus last season? I know there were some moving parts when you came in last year, but what made this such an immediately easy decision?
I believe in Claude as a coach. Not that I didn't believe in Claude and his philosophies last year. I think our core principles align very well. From a defensive structure of a team, as well as what we see in players and individual players. And last year, being new to the position, Claude was also, in a position where he was new with a new general manager, and it took some time for us to make sure that we were working together. I mean, that's, in a lot of honesty here, that's in fairness to Claude and the success he's had. Had Claude come to me and said, maybe there's a better spot for me, and you can carve out your own thing. And to this day, and all the way through this process, that speaks a lot about him as a person, as a coach, because he's never, ever wavered in the fact that this is the place he wants to be in, and he's ridden us up to the good time, and now we're at a lower point, and we want to go back to where he knows he can get us. And I think that speaks volumes about him as a person, first of all, and my confidence in him as a coach.
Joe.
Both Claude and Donnie, just now that it's over and you've discussed it and had the exit interviews, where do you think the sort of faults lie, or where do you think the failings were in not getting to the playoffs for a second straight year, and sort of the finish that was very similar to the year before?
Go ahead, Claude, you can start.
Well, I think it's pretty obvious, Joe, that we failed on numerous occasions there when there was some big games, and we can go back to even a Winter Classic, how we played in that game versus again how well we had played in Montreal against that same team, and there was some games that we failed to get what we needed. I look back at, for example, the New Jersey game, so dominant, but yet weren't able to come up with the win in that certain game. And there was other games, how right now it's more how did we play so well against Detroit and not able to win that game against Detroit. And I think against Ottawa, that's where we failed. Somehow somehow the consistency wasn't there. And, we thought we had a decent amount of consistency at one point, but then it slipped, and throughout the year we lost some games that, I really felt were important to us to win, and we weren't able to do that. So at the end of the day, you end up missing the playoffs by a real small margin, and that's where I think we failed, honestly.
That big game thing, leadership thing, youth thing, can you put your finger on why you think that particular thing was happening to the team?
Well, no, I'm not going to point the finger necessarily at one point. I think as a team, that's where we were, and, there was some youth in our lineup, but we had talked about that at the beginning of the year, that, there could be some, bumps along the way because, we needed to. We didn't have to. We needed to implement some young players in order for us to go forward as an organization. And, mentally I was ready for that. But at the same time, I'm not going to lie, when you're doing as well as you did and you feel you've got a chance at the playoffs, and I know the question is going to be asked, do you feel you guys were good enough to make the playoffs? Absolutely. Yeah, and we failed to make those. But I really felt we had a great opportunity, and Donnie helped us in that regard by giving us some help along the way to even solidify that. So it is extremely disappointed. I think I don't ever remember being as disappointed as I was after Saturday afternoon game, where all we needed was a point, and so do I understand what the fans feel? Absolutely. We felt the same way.
Yeah, I mean, the consistency piece, certainly, we started the year behind the 8 ball, and then I felt we played pretty well. If you take out the 3, breaking games, seasons down in segments, you take out the first 3 and certainly the past 13 games, it's a significant run of points that we had accumulated along the way, and I think that we knew it wasn't just young player integration, but it was newer player integration. There was some transition that we were going through. We spoke about it at the first of the year. You guys asked questions about it. We knew there was going to be some challenges in that regard, and the season presented that. And the margin for error in terms of getting in or not, if you're not one of those elite upper echelon teams, which we aspire to be, and certainly hold ourselves to that standard, you're going to be subject to very small margins. And that's what it came down to. It came down to an ROW. And obviously we held it in our fate if we had won our last game, because Detroit had lost, and we didn't execute. And down the stretch, we didn't play. We played actually better defensively overall, but at times we struggled to score. The depth of our lineup at times didn't necessarily bear forth down the stretch. That might be players being put in a situation for the first time that they have to learn from and grow from. Our older players, more experienced player, veteran players had very, very good years. And, defensively, we didn't stop the momentum against us at times as effectively as we need to going forward.
Coach, when there's so much outside noise, but then right after Saturday's game, Patrice Bergeron calls you the best coach he's ever had in his career. Don Sweeney today saying he believes in you as a coach. What does that mean to you? How does it keep you focused on the task at hand with whatever anyone else is saying?
Well, it's important because that's what makes you want to come back, and that's what makes you want to be here. I think, if the players weren't responding, and if the general manager didn't have the confidence in you, you wouldn't want to be here, And as Don mentioned, I spend time doing a self-evaluation. When you go through those kind of things, you do that. And, at the end of the day, when it's all said and done, I remember coming here 9 years ago with this team being in the same situation, and I told people that I wanted to be the guy that was going to help them get to the top. And, I don't see any reason why I can't do that again. And I'd love to have that opportunity, which I'm being given. So, it's nice to always have these great years. But every once in a while, you get those kind of challenges. And those kind of challenges is what makes you a good coach. And I want to be a character person. I want to be a character coach that wants to be here. And even if we have to go through some bumpy roads, I'm more than willing to do that because I love this city. I love our fans, and I love the organization. So, it was great to hear from those people the support I got.
Dan, a question for Don.
Just do you feel the need of a major overhaul of the roster, and specifically what positions and what kind of things do you think you'll try to do this offseason?
No, I don't believe we need a major overhaul. I believe we need to continue to forge depth in the organization. When you go through these times where you have injuries and you have players that have to be able to step in, you have to have a plan that allows players to develop at the right time that they're supposed to, rather than force a player. At times, when you don't have the depth overall, you can expose a younger player, and we'd like to have the patience in that regard. People talk about young player integration, and David Pasternak's a great example of a player that we're going to have a tremendous amount of patience with, and Claude has that patience with. Very exciting player, big part of our organization going forward, and we need to make sure that we're developing him in the right manner. Marchand, Bergeron, Krejci, Kevin Miller, McQuaid, like, we've done a good job, and when the players have been on board with that and been patient with their own personal development, then it really works, and your team is successful as a result of that. And we're going to maintain that patience. We have a very, very bright future with a number of young players that we have, and recently added to our organization, and it's rightfully so to be excited about that, but it's also imperative to be patient to allow them to be the types of players and hit their ceilings.
Steve?
Don, have you told any of your UFAs whether they'll be back or not, or whether you'll go for a contract with them, and also will you exercise any buyouts, or do you envision that at all?
We in exit interviews, I spoke with all of our UFAs and expressed our interest to have discussions. If they were genuine in their interest to wanting to be here and find that there was a mutual respect and interest between the two parties. If you want to ask about any particular one, I'd be certain to answer. But I won't discuss where those necessary, negotiations and contract talks are at particular times. From a buyout perspective, I think everything in the CBA up and down will be, at our disposal. The ownership has been very supportive of what we need to do, continue to do going forward, and if that's part of it, that's part of it. We just need to continue to get better. I said that before. It's a performance-driven business, and we're going to be held to that standard. And we fell short. We do believe that we should have. That's not disparaging against the 8 teams that are in there right now. We just feel that 16 teams, 8 on our side, that are there and they deserve it, and we fell just short of that. I still believe that we had a strong enough group to get in and challenge there, and then you just wait and see what happens. But we fell short in that, and I take ownership of it. It's on me. It's not on anybody else to continue to improve our roster. That's on me. Kevin Miller, as UFA, had a good year. Really a lot of growth in Kevin's game. Had some injuries at certain times. Tremendous character, and would like to see if we could find common ground there.
Don, not only did Bergeron back Claude as the best coach he's ever had, a lot of the players in the locker room, when we talked to him on Monday, seemed to back Claude as well. Did you get a sense of that from exit interviews with the players?
Well, I would never share what conversations I've had with an individual player. I think it's accurate. They wouldn't stand in front of each and every one of you and not support somebody they didn't believe in. And again, that speaks to Claude in our discussions had been honest to say, I don't think I've lost the voice in that room. And some people might just inherently believe that after a course of time that's only going to happen, and it hasn't happened. And I think for the most part, our teams started our games really well. And that's, again, when a team responds to a coach, I look for that to see whether or not teams come out of the gate. And you look at teams on our road record in particular. Those are times when teams can be fractured. It's imperative for us to figure out why we weren't as effective at home, and in particular our second periods at times got away from us, and the group at times, especially early in the year, players would share with me, like when one goal was scored, it felt like 2. And that's a piece that we got to go through some growing pains and get past. And sometimes that's players being put in situations that they need to grow from. And ultimately, if they can't, then that's on me to find players that will execute in those situations.
Kevin?
Claude, Doug Hoot is going to go. It sounds as if you might make more changes to your assistant staff. The whole coaching staff sends the message, and I'm wondering if, in retrospect here, you wondered if they stopped listening to the message, the players.
No, not necessarily. I think, this is certainly not the case. Doug Hoot is a great coach. Doug Hoot will coach again in this league. The players loved him, everything else. We're discussing here as a management group about moving forward and bringing some people in that can help maybe certain elements of our game that's going to help us. And that was a decision that was made on Doug, and that's what we're continuing to discuss right now. All our personnel that we have in place, and as was mentioned earlier, we weren't expected to be sitting here at this point, and probably not ready for all the answers at this stage. But we're continuing to work on that as we speak.
This one's for Don. How much say would you envision Claude having in the search for assistant coaches?
Primarily, it's he has to be comfortable with and confident in his staff. Throughout the year, Claude and I would have discussions as to roster and the needs of the organization from his side, from our side, but ultimately, staff. He has to feel confident to put forth that he's getting his information disseminated how he wants it to, supporting the players themselves and their own personal development from a teaching component. Practice now. Especially as the year goes along, and the challenge this year coming with 5 days off, it gets limited as the year goes along, and even sometimes your better players are taking times off, and you got to be very defined in what your practice and such is, and there'll be times when coaches will have individual development time, and we need to be really strong in that area, because you got young player integration that you just can't expect to put them in a room and hope they grow from it, and it's an area that we got to make sure we're really keen on, but ultimately Claude will have that decision.
You also mentioned that you don't feel that a total roster overhaul is needed, but I mean, defensively, when you look at how the personnel fared this season, do you think that major changes are needed there, and that it's realistic to make enough of those changes in one off season?
Oh, again, that'll be a challenge. Trades in general are a challenge. If you're looking to, you're going to have to find a trading partner. To get good players, chances are you're giving up good players or younger players or future assets from draft picks, as everybody knows. But the calls will be made. We'll continue to try to establish that. I look at our overall defensively and the newer player integration, what their expectations will be going forward. Might be as simple as understanding shooting lanes a little bit better for young players. Offensively, I think our team grew in that area. Fifth in the league overall in scoring. When first part of the year, people thought, well, they're going to be able to score enough, and at times we just didn't keep it out of our net enough. And we got off to assessing Tuukka's game, got off to a slow start, had a tremendous middle part of the season, and then overall our team didn't get it done with the last 13 games to go. Really unfortunate, to walk in on or get a message that pretty early on Saturday morning that he wouldn't be the starter, and Gus did a hell of a job in the first period in particular because our team didn't play very well. So those are curveballs. And from a roster perspective, I'm never going to tell anybody that I'm not going to try and find the best players we can possibly find. That's not a disparaging comment against the current ones. We clearly aren't playing, so we need to continue to evolve and improve, and that's on me.